Hi there. So before I get into this video, I'm just going to make a little disclaimer about changes that are happening from Term 3 2016. And they are that programs are going to be known as courses. So for example, the STEPS program will be now known as the STEPS course. Undergraduate programs, such as the Bachelor of Arts, will then be known as undergraduate courses. As well as that, courses are going to become units. So for example, preparation skills for university will be called a unit rather than a course. And another change that's happening from term 3 is that direct entry applications, which were previously a PDF form, will become web-based applications. But that change is happening from term 3. Okay, so the topic of this video is what happens after STEPS. I'm going to be talking about direct entry to CQUniversity's undergraduate courses, and my name is Chris Cook and I'm the STEPS Head of Program. Okay, so a little overview. I'm going to talk about different types of undergraduate courses and the way that we categorize them. I'll talk about grade point average, or GPA as we call it, and how you calculate your GPA. I'll talk about the requirements for direct entry and how you can find out more information about the requirements. And I'll talk about the direct entry application process and application deadlines. And finally, I'll mention briefly some details about applying to other universities. Okay, so two different types of courses. There are guaranteed entry courses. These are courses where you're guaranteed a place if you meet the required criteria. So for example, if you complete the required units in STEPS and meet the minimum GPA requirement. And I'll speak a little bit more about that in a moment. And almost all CQUniversity courses guarantee STEP students places in those courses if they meet those criteria. Now, the other type of courses that we have are quota-based courses. And these are courses with limited numbers of places available. So for example, there might only be 15 places on a particular campus. And students must meet the minimum requirements. So for example, they must complete the required units and meet GPA requirements. But the offers go to the students with the highest GPA. So students are competing for places in those courses. There is one course that also has an interview, and you can find more information about that on the STEPS course site on Moodle. So in terms of eligibility for direct entry, so as I've mentioned, you need to complete the required STEPS units, achieve the required GPA, and each undergraduate course requires specific STEPS units and a minimum GPA. So not all courses are the same. Or have the same requirements. And the details are set out in the direct entry section of the STEPS course site on Moodle. So there is some information and documentation on there that you can review, and you should also have discussed this with your access coordinator. And if you do have any questions though, or you change your course of interest, so we will have a course that you're interested in and that your study plan will be set up accordingly. But if you change your mind about what you would like to apply for after STEPS, please contact your access coordinator. All right, so calculating your STEPS GPA. Now, the calculation for GPA in STEPS, because each of the courses are weighted equally, there's a fairly simple calculation that we can do. When you complete a unit, you'll get a grade, and then that grade can then be converted to a number. So a high distinction is worth 7 points, a distinction 6, a credit 5, and a pass 4. So, for example, if Jessica studied 4 STEPS units and achieved the following grades, a D in one unit, a P in another, an HD in another, and a C in another. So a D is worth 6 points, a pass 4, so there's 10 points, plus an HD 7, so there's 17, plus a credit 5, that makes a total of 22 points. You then divide by the number of attempts, so 4 courses, and when you have 22 divided by 4, the answer is 5.5. So that's Jessica's GPA. So that's how you go about calculating your GPA using that formula. So the requirements for direct entry to most undergraduate courses is that you complete the required STEPS units and achieve a GPA of 4.0 or better. But there are a couple of guaranteed entry courses that have slightly higher GPA requirements, and they are Podiatry Practice, which currently has 4.5, and Speech Pathology Honours, which has a 5.0. Now I've got those in red because they are subject to change, but they are the current requirements. And we have two undergraduate courses with no direct pathway from STEPS, and they are the Bachelor of Engineering Honours and Diploma of Professional Practice, Co-op Engineering, that is one course, and the Bachelor of Information Technology Co-op. But you can enter the Bachelor of Engineering Honours, or if you're going for the IT one, doing the Bachelor of Information Technology, and after completing a specified number of credits with a GPA above a specified limit, and this information is available in the handbook, you can then transfer to those courses listed above. And the first year of those courses is the same, so you would basically be going in doing the first year, and then you can look to transfer if you meet the requirements for that change. Okay, and quota-based courses. At the moment, these are the quota-based courses that we have, and I've also got the current minimum GPAs listed there. So the Bachelor of Cardiac Physiology, Echocardiography, Medical Sonography, and Oral Health all have a minimum GPA of 6.0. Medical Imaging, Occupational Therapy, and Physiotherapy have a minimum GPA of 5.0. So that's the minimum GPA that you need to gain to be considered. So not to be guaranteed, but to be considered. And then, as I've said earlier, it goes on. Students with the highest GPA will be offered places for the limited number of places that are available. And also, as I mentioned, Oral Health also has a telephone interview that they conduct. And there's more information on the STEPS course site on Moodle about the how to prepare for that Oral Health telephone interview. Okay, so how do you go about finding out more about the courses that you're looking to gain entry to? Well, the handbook is the source of knowledge. So you go and under degrees, you click on undergraduate, and then from there, you type in the course that you're thinking of applying to, and you'll have a number of options that will pop up, and choose the one that is relevant. So in this case, I'm choosing the Bachelor of Nursing. Now, once you do that, a page will appear something like this, and I've highlighted or circled in red there some important tabs with information that you should read before you apply. So it will have information in the Getting Started tab, so when and where you can start and what you need before you start, and the course learning outcomes, the course structure, so that will have the units that you will need to complete, and any other details. So it might have details about residential schools or things like that. So if I click on the Getting Started tab, you can find when and where the course is offered. And if you hover over some of those ticks, sometimes there might be some additional information that will pop up. But you'll notice that not all courses are offered in all terms. So it's important that you check out where and when you can start. It's also important to check out what the entry requirements are, particularly if you're from a non-English speaking background. You may need to demonstrate English language proficiency through an IELTS test or something similar. So check out that information as well. Now, once you have the course that you would like to apply for, there is an Apply Online button at the top of the page, that green button there. So you click on that, and you'll get a page that looks like this, but rather than filling out all of the details as you're an existing student, you can click on Log On, and you'll be prompted to enter your student ID and password, and then it will pick up a lot of your details. Now, once you go into the site, you'll have some options there. So for example, I'm looking at the Bachelor of Nursing, and you'll notice that there's a couple of differences here. So one looks at load category. You'll see that one says full-time and one says part-time. So full-time is 3 or 4 units per term. Part-time is 1 or 2, and you can choose that. Once you have selected the option that you're interested in, it's a good idea to consider second preferences, particularly if you're aiming for a quota-based program. It's very important. In case you don't get that offer for a quota-based program, it may default to a second preference. So make sure you check the requirements for that second preference and that you are meeting those requirements. Okay, so once you have, to do that, you click on select another course, and you'll see that this one has a first preference, and further down here, this one will have a second preference. Now, if you want to change the order, you click on this button here, and then you can either decrease or increase your preference. So making Bachelor of Psychological Science is the #1 preference, and Bachelor of Nursing is second preference, or so on, or you can remove some of those options altogether, and that's what that little button there is for. So once you have completed that, then it just takes you through a number of steps where you fill out some of your personal details, your educational background. You have to answer some mandatory questions and make sure that you save those as you go, and then you review and submit. Once you have submitted, you can log back into the site and check the status of your application. So it's all done online. Okay, so direct entry application deadlines. Guaranteed entry courses have a deadline that's 2 weeks prior to the commencement of term. So that's the absolute deadline for submitting your direct entry application. Quota-based courses, however, the deadline varies. Usually it's just after the census date of the previous term. Your access coordinator will advise you of the exact date via email, but what we recommend is that you submit your direct entry application just after the census date of the term prior to the one you want to commence, regardless of whether it's a guaranteed entry or a quota-based course that you're applying for. Now, if you have any questions about direct entry, you can refer to the requirements for direct entry document on the STEPS course site on Moodle, or contact your access coordinator. Your access coordinator might be able to give you some general advice. And for any general inquiries, you can also contact the student advice team on 132786 or sat@cqu.edu.au. Now, if you are considering applying to other universities, it's your responsibility to contact the university you're intending to apply to and check their requirements, because their requirements will probably differ from CQUniversity's requirements. You can submit an application to the relevant state-based tertiary admissions centre. So for example, in Queensland, it would be QTAC, in New South Wales, and the ACT, UAC, and so on. And you can check out their websites for due dates and any other requirements. Note that there may be some costs involved, but you can find that information on the relevant tertiary admissions centre website. So in summary, check the requirements for direct entry, and you can do that by going to the STEPS course site on Moodle and looking for the information about direct entry. Read the course information in the handbook about the course that you intend to apply for. Fill out and submit your direct entry application online by following the prompts once you click on the handbook. Make sure that you nominate a second preference. You can even nominate third preference if you would like, but it's important that you have a second preference there, particularly if you're applying for a quota-based program. And it's very important that you ensure that you meet the requirements for that second preference. So that means completing the required STEPS units and achieving the required GPA. And submit your application just after the census date of the term prior to the one when you want to commence your undergraduate studies. And if you have any questions, contact the student advice team or your access coordinator, and they will be more than happy to help you out. So that's it from me. I wish you all the best with your studies, and I look forward to seeing your name on the list of students who have been successful in gaining a place in their undergraduate course of choice.